Yeah. Okay. I think we're live. We are live.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone. And we're going to sure that our listeners and viewers can see us.
Mhm.
Mariah, you'll give me a thumbs up if there's anything that we need to like fix.
Me too.
I think there's a little bit of a delay on
Okay.
the YouTube stream, but I have all indication that we are live. So, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. Happy Sunday. I am Angel Shannon, founder and executive director of SIVA Health and the SIVA Institute, where we like to say we put mindfulness and compassion in action to help you live longer and live better. Please welcome my beautiful co host, Mariyah Thompson. Mariah is a biophilic designer. She's also a lover of plants, everything plants. So, everything that has to do with nature and plants and living longer and living better and living with joy and intention. We are so, I hope you can feel coming through your camera right now how excited Mariah and I are to join you today to start talking about how to be happier and healthier with houseplants. Welcome, Mariah, and thank you so much for agreeing to co host this series with me.
Absolutely. I am so happy to be here. It is such an honor to speak on a topic as passionate as I am about this.
Mhm.
I think everyone should be. Um, I have the privilege of adding greenery to many different spaces, from residential settings to commercial settings like doctor's offices or hotels or consulting businesses, anywhere you can think of. Greenery belongs, and I hope to speak to that more with you all today.
Yes, all of that, all of that. Thank you so much for saying that. And I want to jump right in because as we were saying before we jumped on, it's Sunday. Today is like self-care day, self-care Sundays. So we want to just first of all honor you all for joining us today. Honor your time. We're going to move through. We're going to, if we have questions, go ahead and drop it in the chat for us. This is the first time Mariah and I are doing this. So please extend us a little bit of grace. We're going to try to man the questions at the same time. But if not, drop a question in there if we miss it, then we'll be sure to message you back. If you are watching this, if we will have this as a recording available to you, so you don't have to like furiously write down notes or anything like that. You can just sit back, relax, because it is Sunday, so it's a good day to just be happier and healthy plants.
Yeah.
So, Mariah, I want to tap into your expertise, and I really want you to kick it with our subject matter, which is all about being happier and healthier with houseplants. And what are we talking about when we say healthier? Because a lot of people,
Mhm.
think of plants as just like decorations. Oh, I've got a new home. I'm going to decorate my house with plants. But I would
Mhm.
love for you to kick it off this conversation as to what do we mean by plants being able to make us like really healthier?
Yes. I think it is first taking the time to acknowledge that all of us can relate to the feeling that we feel when we step outside of our spaces. There's fresh air, we see greenery, trees, we are reminded of who we are and our place in the world.
Mhm.
And we cannot ignore that feeling that we feel can only be exposed in a park space, right? Or if we intentionally visit a conservatory,
Mhm.
right? Or we go to the beach for a day. We can create those same feelings in our home spaces, in our indoor spaces.
Mhm.
And I think it's important for us to just acknowledge that natural truth of when you see greenery,
Mhm.
it equals home at a cellular level. Like genetically, we are a part of them. We can see ourselves. If you've ever, if you cut a carrot and you look into the center of it, right? It looks like the iris of your eye,
Yes.
right? When you look at the palm, your own palm, you can see veins. You relate them to veins in leaves, right? There's this very innate, natural connection and beauty surrounding plants and all living beings, right? And the more that we prioritize kind of creating those senses within our environments, being more intentional about that, I think the better health you have as a whole, because your level of awareness of yourself and the world is higher.
I so agree with you. And it's really funny to me when you say that we literally, our bodies are very similar to plants, right? Our skin, the way we absorb, moisture, water, our skin is our most important line of defense. There's that, the iris of the eye. We literally look like plants. We operate very much like plants,
We
right?
do.
Like
We
I
do.
have a few plants where, and we in this series, we're gonna in ongoing upcoming episodes, we'll talk, how to understand the language of plants. You and I both know we know when they are sad, right? We know when they need water. Our good old peace lily is one plant that will let you know when it is not particularly happy.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, drawing these parallels is where I feel I like to say they bring power. These parallels provide power. We get to better understand our place here, and they're here just existing with us. We are absolutely one.
Yes. And I love how, when you and I had spoken on the podcast back in the spring, and you were talking about plants just doing their own thing, right? They just exist, they do their own thing. They're never competing with another plant in any way. I mean, look at your beautiful home. You can clearly see that Mariyah lives where she preaches about, happier and healthier at home with houseplants. But I love when you mentioned that the last time in the podcast about taking lessons from plants and how they coexist, right?
Yes. We all are parts of bigger, greater families, right? As are they. Some of them have very similar behaviors, very similar appearance or leaf shape or texture. And they all are definitely very communicative, some more than others, right? As we are too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Some more dramatic about their response to stress, but we are responding to stress just as they are. But they keep moving, they keep growing, and they keep doing what they're literally made to do. Photosynthesizing, creating energy, increasing oxygen and air quality. They know what they're here for, and they do it well.
They do. And I was at the museum the other day, and I came across this book, and I wanted to just really, if you don't mind, I just want to read this one thing.
Please.
It says, this is called Plants Have So Much to Give Us, All We Have to Do Is Ask. And the author was talking about this particular patient. She said, when taking a plant, be sure to ask for both a spiritual as well as a physical healing for oneself or one's patient. She gets into talking about how we should really talk to the plant. In the fall, after the seeds fall, if one wants to take a catnip plant, for instance, one should explain why, in the way one would explain if one wanted another human being to give blood to save a loved one. It is considered better if one can tell the plants which person will be making well. So if you're gifting a plant to someone else, really want to talk to the plant about, if you're cutting off a leaf, let's just say peppermint or catnip or something like that. What do you think about that? About, if you're gifting a plant to someone, or if in the case of herbs, if you're using an aloe plant, let's say if you were using to heal your skin or what have you. What do you think about that? Like spiritually, like saying to the plant, this is what I am using your leaf for. May it be a blessing to, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
I literally have chills as you're like speaking about this, because they truly are a gift, right? They're much greater than decoration or something beautiful to look at. They serve purpose here.
Mhm.
Speaking to aloe, right, which is amazing, one, to help like fusion and like healing. And, you know, if you have a burn, it helps soothe the skin. It is very moisturizing, even for the hair, if you're
Mhm.
using hair. It has many purposes, and acknowledging and seeing it as this living being and this living force that is benefiting you for whatever purpose
Mhm.
you're to use it for. I think asking for permission is so beautiful. Or
Yes.
intention, even if it's not permission, because maybe they can't necessarily, it can be hard to hear their responses in some ways, but just announcing that intention with them. Oh, it's
Mhm.
absolutely felt, and it is
Mhm.
absolutely appreciated, and I never doubt that.
Mhm.
Um, Aloe is beautiful. All of the aloe that I have acquired, and I
Mhm.
have much of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I know you can't see it here, but much of it,
Mhm.
they've all come from my mother or my grandmother, I noticed just
Mhm.
last week, thinking of that.
Mhm.
But the
Mhm.
intention surrounding our giving
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
our healing, our purpose of using the plant, and that connection and intentionality is so amazing. And it's a
Mhm.
great practice
It is.
to
It
acquire.
is.
It's
Mhm.
separate. Just when we're consuming um, foods, or we're picking our strawberries or
Mhm.
our pears, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So much for this gift, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Nourish.
Mhm.
Thank you for providing me better clarity, more hydration. Um,
Mhm.
so relating it
Mhm.
to not just houseplants and cuttings and
Mhm.
gifting for
Mhm.
holiday birthdays, but also they're always feeding us, and we
It
should
is.
always grateful of whether that's on our table for us to consume, or
Mhm.
whether that's to gift or receive.
Mhm. Mhm.
They definitely deserve that.
Yep, I totally, totally agree. And that part just really like stood out for me, like in a really deep way, because it's that reciprocity that you and I talk about, and that understanding that it isn't just about for nature, just taking and taking and taking. And we, more than any other time I can think of, at least in my most recent life, is just experience a lot of that right around the world,
Yeah.
just taking and taking and taking,
Mm-hmm.
and really not having that connection to really explain what our usage of is of nature and our experience in nature.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront, and always, since I've known you, like you really, really are very intentional about your relationship with plants and the biosphere and nature and all of this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. We are such a part. Um, I also think simply they are beneficial for the routine of it all, and
Mhm.
the maintenance and
Mhm.
the checking in, right?
Mhm.
Sundays, yes, thank you all for being here on a Sunday again.
Mhm.
Sundays I hold very, very high. I know
Yes.
you was very aware of that.
Yes.
But power in Sundays. I know you see me soaking it up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Sundays are also my primary, yes, self-care day, but also
Yes.
the day I spread the most love I can to all of my plant babies. Um,
Yes.
it's a very meditative process,
Mhm.
and I'll turn on my jazz, and
Mhm. Me
I'll
too.
mix fertilizers, um, and I begin watering, I begin cleaning, I
Mhm.
begin praying, right? I appreciate the interaction as well.
Mhm.
Um, checking and checking in on them is me checking in on myself too. So
Yes.
it's a, like you said, reciprocal relationship. It is
Mhm.
not in any sense. They hear the music, they're enjoying the cleaning and the propagations and the
Yes.
They enjoy being maintenance, as do we. And
Exactly.
beautiful. It's a beautiful kind of continuous thing. It's a
Mhm.
continuous relationship.
It is. And I wanted to say too, because you mentioned at the very beginning, like
Mhm.
doctor's offices and private homes and things like this. One of the
Yeah.
things I always experience with people, and I
Mhm.
really felt so happy to be able to have this series with you, is, and I know you hear this, people are so incredibly intimidated by plants, right? They're so intimidated, they're so afraid. And I get it. No one wants to feel like they've killed a plant, right? No one wants to feel
Mhm.
like a plant died on them or whatever. Or, when you get a plant as a gift and then someone comes over your house and they're like, hey, whatever happened to that plant I gave you? And you're like, oh my God,
Ah!
you know?
Yes.
So I want to ask you,
Yes.
um, how do you handle? I mean, I know my answer to it, but how do you handle that when people are so afraid of plants and they don't? And for our listeners, the ones who are keying in or going to listen after the fact, who are like, that all sounds good, but I don't have a green thumb. What do you think about that when people say that specifically? I
Mhm.
don't have a green thumb.
Mhm. Not only do I often hear I don't have a green thumb, but I'll also hear I have a black thumb
Yeah.
or I have a brown thumb, or if you bring don't give me that plant. If you give me that plant, if I even
Hmm.
look at it, it'll die.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think words, right? The words that we use hold so much power, and
Yeah.
it's important to be intentional about them.
Yes.
I would say, without sounding rude, if I may, that ignorance. It's just you have to open your mind to better understanding some living them.
Yep.
These are green companions around us. The
Hmm.
more you open your mind to just learning about them individually, I think it
Hmm.
encourages you to learn about different areas of yourself, right?
Yes.
And we may experience more life and growth. And
Hmm.
there may be times also that we experience death. And so I try to always remain extremely humble about this because this
Hmm.
is all learned, right?
Hmm.
These are skills that I have learned over years' time,
Hmm.
whether that was tending to my grandmother's garden when I was 4 years old, from 4 to 24,
Hmm.
or what in my professional environment or in my home or others' spaces. It
Hmm.
is learning. And the more that we open our mind to just expanding
Hmm.
our knowledge of the world and our
Hmm.
friends, um,
Hmm.
it encourages you to apply more patience in learning about yourself too.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
it can be intimidating, but it is all about your perspective, right? A cactus, I try to
Hmm.
very simply, but what a cactus needs is
Hmm.
completely different than what a tiny tropical plant or a plant
Exactly. Hmm.
native to a rainforest in South America. Very
Hmm.
different. So it's just understanding their needs,
Hmm.
understand their needs, what they like and what they don't like, then you're just fine. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's just understanding what it is they like and don't like. Like people, when we're building relationships intentionally,
Hmm.
in professional settings, in interpersonal, like relationship settings, it is simply
Hmm.
others and opening your
Hmm.
mind to that information. So that is how I like to encourage people to view um, houseplants and tending to them. It is a learned, skilled process, and you just need to stay open.
Exactly. I love that answer. I was just putting in a little thing in the a response someone was sending to me in another platform. But yes,
Okay.
I 100% agree with you. It's and not to sound elitist at all. Like you said, we're deeply humble about this, but it really is just our own ignorance. I remember standing, reading a book called Last Child into the Woods. I don't remember the
Oh,
author's name,
I
but
plan to, I have not yet, but
yeah, it's a wonderful book because it speaks about the lack of opportunity. Well, I'm going to say lack of opportunity because we always have the opportunity, but the
Mhm.
fact that children are not having adequate time exposure outdoors in nature and whatnot. And, when I was little, I will just say in science class, we did things like we just had beans that we put in water and propagated and learned how a bean could be planted. Like our lives weren't as complicated. And we ourselves as humans, we're the ones who are complicating it, right? There's no big being in the sky that's making our lives more complicated.
It's
We are the
a
ones that are, and we can start our babies and children off from a very young age, just by, first of all, bringing plants into the home environment so they do see how things grow. And like you said, I love that you said it is the, life and death and illness of a plant mirrors our own life and death and illness, right? When we
Mhm.
see a plant with brown leaves, we shouldn't be so like, oh my God, we can just say, okay, there's some, maybe this plant is ill. How can I help it? How can I nurture it, feed it? What is it? And how can I do that for myself?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
yeah,
Definitely. Speaking to like how children are brought up now, and the lack of, yes, adequate time outside. Um, Time just in nature. I remember I'm currently 25 years old, and I experience the same joy, if not more, when my hands are digging in soil.
oh my goodness,
When,
yes.
when we start to equate and look at it truly for
Mhm,
all that it is, we're like,
mhm.
wow, how long have you been here? You grow
Yeah,
this appreciation um, for it that really never goes away, right?
right.
It's so beautiful, and it needs to be prioritized. And
Mhm.
I don't have a seed of my own or a little nugget yet, but when I do, um, they'll absolutely be playing in the dirt just as I was, and
Yeah,
reflect years pass once they're more mature. The similarly as I am now, I hope to instill that importance around.
exactly.
We are of the dirt, right?
Exactly.
We return to the earth when
We
we pass
do.
here in our physical form. Um,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it's all of this life cycle from conception and seed and fertilization to birth and playing in dirt to
Mhm.
maturity and returning back to the earth,
That's
right?
right.
They're always giving back to us, and we're giving back to them. And it's important to instill that in the next future, our future generations.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think these conversations are so important in bringing awareness to just, again, that undoubted fact. we
Mhm.
we need it. We are it. We are them.
Exactly. We are them. And what I love about your environment that you're showing, you're at home, I'm at home, and what I see in your home right now is not just plants, but I see loads of light. And I want to say that one of the things about biophilic design is, yes, it's plants, but it's all the things that go along with nature. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of us don't have enough light in our homes. You wonder why you're so
Hmm.
sad and you don't have energy and all these other things.
Yeah.
Aside from, going to the doctor and getting your physical and all that other kind of thing, but just
Hmm.
think about this environment at home where it's like low light, right? So, one of the things I love is feng shui design
Hmm.
principles and figuring
Yes.
out like, where do I get more light or less light? What can I
Hmm.
put there? Maybe instead of having your bookcase, directly in the sunlight, maybe you can put the bookcase over there and put a
Yep.
chair where you can
Yeah.
sit and feel that
Hmm.
sunlight, right? Like
Hmm.
taking advantage, and a chair and maybe a plant so that you
Yeah.
can take advantage of that sunlight. So biophilic design, for anyone who's new to that concept, is
Hmm.
really about, first of all, designing around nature and using natural principles without making
Yeah.
it too like heavy and whatnot.
Hmm.
So for your clients and for people you design for and with, that you partner with, do you touch into those? I can imagine you do touch into those
Yeah.
elements, right?
Yeah. I love how you broke down kind of that example of like as simple as like the bookcase, right?
Mhm.
Paying attention to how light moves through spaces during the day,
Mhm.
right? The light that, and I'm sure you guys will even see this in the short hour that we have here, but you know, it's around noon. I
Mhm.
have south facing sun through my living room and kitchen
Mhm.
that allows me, thankfully, to not have to turn on any lights during the day.
Mhm.
So often when people, or when I'm adding plants to new spaces or asking people about their existing plants in spaces, it's like during the day, if you were trying to read a book, do you have to turn a light on?
Mhm.
And I think your answer to that should not only be important to the plants that will be okay living in that space, but also, are you okay living in that space?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So seeing it, yes, it's not just plants and the greenery and those earth elements, but
Mhm.
also the air, the
Mhm.
water, the
Mhm.
quality of the sun. Those are
Mhm.
all things that you definitely need to take into consideration when adding anything to your space or considering a space, period. I think it should be prioritized. Adding windows,
Mhm.
intentionally placing things, again, where your light hits during the day at
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
um, certain plants during certain times of the day. That's a little
Yes.
more
Yes.
complex.
Yes.
And their movement and response to those different environments. But
Right.
all of related energies,
Mhm.
and it goes to create a healthier, just more beneficial and beautiful setting as a
Mhm.
whole.
Mhm. Exactly. And I love that you said like south facing, north facing, figuring that out. It's not hard to figure that out. Like this is as easy as downloading like a compass onto your cell phone, right?
Which
Or just
we have.
right.
Many already have that tool.
Yep.
But depending on what part you are in the world will determine, of course, the
Mhm.
relationship, how much sun you're receiving at a specific time of the day. Um,
Mhm.
so south being like the most, which is great. If you have south windows, that's awesome. Um, I would then go like west,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and then east, and then north is our more like filtered light, is opposite of south. And of
Mhm.
course, that change depending on the space,
Right.
the quality of light. If you have buildings that you have to, if you live in the city
Mhm.
and you have buildings that may block sun at certain parts of the day, or you're near an alley, or there is trees maybe when
Mhm.
they're in bloom during certain seasons, are
Mhm.
blocking during the winter, you're getting full sun. So again, this intentional like placement and consideration is nice to pay attention to for the plants, but also us through the seasons and the
Yes.
change, the
Yes.
times of the day, and the right. It makes us more aware because we're
Exactly.
starting by being aware with them, maybe.
Exactly. And I love that you say that about seasons. I was sharing this with a friend, and I think even in the circle of women that I'm in, and definitely on the retreat, someone asked me about the retreat, like, why did I choose September? And obviously, well, for me anyhow, I'm like very intentional about like the things that I do. But yeah, seasons matter. Like winter is its own, the energy of winter, the timing,
Yeah.
what's blooming, what's growing, knowing
Mhm.
different hemispheres and things like this. You mentioned tropical plants versus cactus that are, native to areas that are more arid and dry. A friend of mine
Mhm.
was just in Santa Fe and New Mexico, and I've not been to Santa Fe, but I'm excited to be
Nice.
going because I want to go. And she was like, Angel, let me tell you something. It is different. Like she's from New York. She lives
Mhm.
in
Okay.
Oregon. I'm here. We're coastal people, right? And so
Wow.
she was like, Santa Fe is, there are different trees, they're different, the elevation. It's like 8,000 miles above sea level or something. But you have to be knowledgeable in that regard. And I would say, for me, when people say, "Oh, I want to, design my home with plants," I always
Mhm.
say, like, don't fall into that trap of going into a plant shop or Home Depot or anyway and just, oh my God, I love this plant. Like, take a step back and really just take the time to figure out where this plant is, what the native conditions are. I'll never
Yes.
forget getting a tropical. I can't remember the name of it, but I know you
Uh-huh.
see it all the time. It's got this beautiful, like orange and green, but it's native to like the Caribbean. And
Okay.
I think it starts with a C. I can't remember. But
Um, a,
anyhow, huh?
a croton or CROTON. It's got like
Yes.
yellow,
Yes.
red. Oh, okay, cool.
Yes.
That's good.
I wanted that plant. Thank you so much. I wanted it so bad. And this
Yeah.
was in my earlier years. And I was like, oh, it's going to look so great because I've got these color pillows and this color, this and this, that. Honey, I didn't know what I was doing. And I'll tell you, it was sad now that I look back on it because I was ignorant. I didn't take the opportunity to really educate myself about what kind of care and conditions. And now that I look back, it was next to a cold window.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
And now that I know what I know, I'm like, oh, so
Yes.
would you speak to
I
that too about selecting?
I absolutely can say I have had my own experiences with that. I stopped count. I don't. People will ask me how many plants I have, and I don't count anymore. I don't think it's realistic to. Um, but I have absolutely killed plants more in my past than, of course, current. But it is okay, and I am accepting that. Again, that was a learning process. I
Mhm.
remember I was a chronic overwaterer. I am now the opposite, which is very funny,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
not accumulated. But we often, something goes wrong and we think we need to saturate,
Yep.
add more. Maybe
Yep.
it's a matter of drying out and ridding and
Yeah.
detoxifying for a minute and just stabilizing. I think sometimes we oversaturate ourselves, and
Yes.
many make ourselves sick or rot.
Yes.
Um, so it's a learning process, and I think the more patient you are with yourself with
Mhm.
that, the
Mhm.
better you'll do. But yes, being very intentional about what you're choosing to add to your space, but patient if it doesn't go too well initially. They are again responding to different stress and um, changes in seasons and drafts and
Yes.
heating, conditioning, humidity, no humidity,
Yep.
all day. Um, but they're still here and they're doing their best. And you
Yep.
just speak to them.
Yep.
They're
Yeah. And I love that you said that, like we saturate ourselves same way that we
you
do
do.
with these plants. And it's funny because I'm laughing because that was my thing. That was my fix for every plant problem.
Yeah.
Oh, it must need more water. Let me get it more water.
I we are all I somewhat at least a little guilty of that.
Yes. Yes.
Most
Yes.
just need to drop time to sit with ourselves and rid all the extra before we're trying to add more and more.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
before we add more and more, and the parallels to that in our own
Mhm.
lives, before you just jump out and, "Oh, let me do this, let me do that, let me sign up for this, let me sign up for that."
Yeah.
Like, take a step back, take a deep breath, and the same with our plants. We do the
Huh?
It's so hilarious to me because like, I would
I,
never do that now.
I I think the first plant I rotted, and I hate to say it, but it was a Dracaena mascane, and I loved that plant. And when I
Yes.
loved her, I named her Camilla. I have many photos with Camilla, and I still mourn her to this day. Um, but I think Camilla is very happy with me now because of all
Yes.
of her cousins and siblings' successes. But I look back,
Yes.
I absolutely drowned her, and I was drowning myself at the same time. I'm no longer doing that.
Right.
I'm no longer doing that. I'm very patient and I'm kind and I let myself breathe as we should the roots. The roots of the plant
Yes.
breathe. Don't walk.
Yes. Yes. Mariah, it's funny. You always take me exactly where I want to go in the conversation because if people can see your plant there, which first of all is like such a metaphor, right? You can see the soil, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things I did in the early days with my lack of knowledge about plants is I didn't take the time to really understand how important soil is. Now, I have a farmer, a friend, Maurice Small,
Oh,
who's a really dear friend of mine, who talks a lot about soil health. I mean, really, really,
oh,
really teaches about soil health. And 2 points I
yeah.
want to make about soil. One, if viewers can see the soil there in Mariah's plant, the conditions of the soil really matter. Soil is everything. Before you think about what this pretty pot that you want and where you want to put it and this and the other, like give yourself the opportunity to learn what soil is. That's number one. And when we do these sessions, like we're going to, in upcoming sessions, we're going to talk about soil. We're going to talk about how to choose
Mhm.
pots. We're going to talk about what should go in the soil and
Yep.
all of this good stuff. It's all coming. But that's the first thing. And then you said about roots. I will
Yeah.
never forget, and I had a plant that was not doing well at all, learning that there is a time for repotting, right? So
Yeah.
knowing the right size pot is akin to our own lives. There's times when we have outgrown the conditions that we live
Mhm.
in, the place that we live in, the things that are in our lives. There are times we've
Mhm.
outgrown it, but then there are times that, like a plant, we can take a plant that is too small to be in this big, gigantic pot,
Yeah.
right? I wonder if you can speak to that.
Oh my gosh, conditions and mediums, right? And spaces. There are absolutely times to not repot and times where plants would. There's even plants that prefer to be more bound before going to larger areas,
Mhm,
just like we are. And then there's some that cannot stand it and they're like, I need to go somewhere bigger as soon as possible.
mhm,
Understanding where each plant kind of falls on that spectrum is very cool and helps to deepen your knowledge
mhm,
overall, and you'll become more comfortable
mhm,
repotting over time as you learn this. But this plant is very cool, or this pot, I love it because it is complete. You can see through it. So it's a glass planter,
mhm,
and I'm in love with the roots of this plant in particular because they just go crazy. I repotted this less than 2 months ago, and it has already began. I don't know that you all can see this, but it's already began itching out of this pot. And I bought this plant at the Baltimore Farmers Market,
mhm,
and I was just obsessed with it. It's something I had seen many times.
mhm,
It was itching to get out of its pot, and I equated that right to like where I was at the time two
mhm,
months ago. Oh my gosh, I needed to just take a leap. I
mhm,
needed to do things I was afraid of and take initiative.
mhm.
Um, so there's absolutely a season for gathering yourself and collecting and getting comfortable in your environment and sure
Mhm.
of yourself and comfy. But then there's also a point that you reach where that environment simply no longer serves you. And
That's
you
right.
have to be accepting of that. And I
That's
think
right.
it's a really hard like lesson, but plants help me learn that more and more every day. But there's a point where you no longer fit.
Mhm.
That's one. And then there's also a point where it is just simply no longer nourishing to
Yep.
you.
Yep.
So people often think that repotting is just about the roots. The roots have outgrown this pot.
Mhm.
I have to get
Mhm.
in a bigger. But also, sometimes a plant doesn't necessarily, or the root system doesn't outgrow the pot. It just needs a new medium or
Yes.
fresh, nourishing soil. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
soil, just so everyone knows, soil doesn't ever necessarily go bad.
Mhm.
It can lose its water retention or
Yeah.
it can become hydrophobic over time or
Mhm.
not more water. And it
Mhm.
also loses nutrients.
Mhm.
Because roots are constantly, this is where they're growing.
Mhm.
Um, there's exchanges going on, right?
Mhm.
And that's why we fertilize, right? To reintroduce nourishment to soil, but it never actually goes bad. It can just lose health and vitality.
Mhm.
And that is too just
Mhm.
as important as knowing when to leave. It's knowing when to nourish or what no longer has nourishment in it.
Ex-
Sometimes it's not just space.
mhm.
So I
Exactly.
want to
Yes.
make that
Yes.
known. Mm-hmm.
And that is such incredible wisdom because you're right about nutrients. When I think about people saying, because in my world of healthcare, people will say to me, well, I don't understand. I eat all organic. And I have to remind people that just because you're eating organic doesn't mean that the soil that the food is grown in is nutrient rich, right? So people will ask, do you really think I need supplements? And I'm like, yeah, because a lot of the food that unfortunately is grown nowadays and then
Mm-hmm.
carried on a container thousands and thousands of miles is nutrient poor. It's just enough to make it to the shelf, but it's not necessarily grown in rich nutrient, that's rich in potassium or rich in
Yep.
calcium or rich in, magnesium. So you absolutely
Mm-hmm.
can have nutrient deficiencies at the cellular level, as you were talking about
Yep.
earlier, and be eating all organic. It has nothing to do with whether or not the soil is nutrient rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we're speaking about diet, I'm getting a little excited, and I want to speak to also in my love for plants and my experiences with them. I am also 7 years vegetarian, which I am really happy about, and I think it's a great lifestyle to adopt if you find it like suits you or fits you. But I like to say that in choosing not to consume flesh any longer and simply consuming life, greens, beans, plants, essentially, and
Mm-hmm.
their fruits, um, I think has literally elevated my life force
Mm-hmm.
as a whole. I think I vibrate at on a different plane almost because I'm just like life, life, leaf, life,
Yes.
life, life,
Yes.
rather than death, 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 death.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about what we're consuming to even that way and their benefits to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some more nutrient dense than others, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I hope to one day have a farm and grow all of my produce. That is the dream.
Mm-hmm.
That is the dream. So I can't wait to translate this knowledge on um, already on what I know, but specifically too to like farming and
Mm-hmm.
produce and
Mm-hmm.
growing, all
Mm-hmm.
of that. That's another level that I am asked about often, but I'm not an expert there yet. But I will be. So I'm speaking it.
You are. And I 100%, first of all, I'm going to connect you with a couple of farmer friends who
Please.
really believe in like indigenous farming practices and heirloom, whatnot. So I'm going to do that offline. And I'll even probably bring one of these people on maybe to join us in a conversation, roundtable conversation, because I really, really think that you will. I mean, I see you manifesting it, right? We talk about parallel realities. I can
Yeah.
already see you manifesting it because you're already headed in that, like you're already walking that line now. And you're absolutely right about, food is energy. These plants, understand, please, listeners, viewers, plants are energy. They are live beings, right? Just like we have fish or we have dogs or we have whatever, the plant
Yes.
kingdom is real. It's alive, right? And to your point about the soil and the roots and constantly taking in, they're taking up water,
Mm-hmm.
they're taking up vitamins and all of this. And to think that we take that and put it in our body. Just think about the fact that your life is dependent upon what
Yeah.
you are ingesting. And so
Yeah.
I'm not the nutritional police. I'm not going to tell anybody what,
Right.
what they need to do. But I will say this, that when you are plant-based, in your diet, in your lifestyle, in your environment, when plants and living beings are really part of your lifestyle, it
Yes.
definitely changes how you experience the world, how you walk through the world, how the world experiences you. There's some people who think, Angel, how is it that you just, they almost think that I'm like fake happy, right? Like, how can
Yep.
you always be happy, always be happy? It has nothing to do with being happy. It has everything to do with choosing life and choosing
Oh,
gratitude and choosing to
beautiful.
be joyful for being alive. That's what it has to do with. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with happy. I have
Yeah.
that in the title, Happier and Healthier with Houseplants, but it
Yeah.
has everything
Mhm.
to do with happiness is a byproduct of the joy
Mhm.
that I experience because I literally do. I walk with nature and with plants and with all that goes along. And, even in cooking, taking
Yeah.
a bowl of spinach and knowing that this was alive. It is here to be nutrition for my body and my
Yeah.
soul. And so that's what you were talking about as
It's
well.
so beautiful. It's so rewarding. I have chills again. I know I'm in the sun and I'm warm, but I have chills again because it's so true. And this, again, this ever changing relationship in this cycle is so beautiful, recognizing that they were here prior to us being here, right? Like the plant kingdom, right, was here prior to the animal kingdom. We were here after they were. We are what? We thrive because of their existence,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
We consume them on many different levels. Even if you do consume meat, right? Cows primarily it is grass that they are consuming. They're herbivores. That is
There it
what
is.
they are eating, and then you are then just eating that like recycled protein.
Mhm,
No,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it is so beautiful, kind of just seeing where you fall in that chain,
Yep.
whether you choose to like shorten that chain or not.
Mhm, mhm.
It's very beautiful, and thank you for manifesting it even more for me because yes, one day I will be a gardener and I
Yeah,
will land and I'll have my fiance William grabbing a pepper for dinner
I know you will.
very casually. But it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding.
Yeah,
So
it is.
it's just
It
on.
is. Yep, it really truly is. So I know we've got about 10
Yeah.
more minutes. So I want to just say for me, for folks, I wanted to just make the point that a lot of times we're saying, oh, I don't have any plants, or I'm not a green thumb, or all these other things. But I want you to know that the majority of things that you have in your home, your body products, things that you're using, are coming from plants. So there's a lot of stuff that you use that as you stay tuned with Mariyah and I, and we're gonna, Mariah's gonna cover some topics, I'm gonna cover some other things. But if you just know that aromatherapy, for instance,
Oh,
again, something you can use, get yourself familiar with to bring more plants into your life. If you use
mhm.
essential oil, that is bringing plants into your life. I
Yeah.
literally just picked up like this peppermint balm for my feet. Again, peppermint is a plant. If you look at like these soaps that you're buying, these are things that you can, I mean, I love supporting folks, but you can make these things your own soaps
Yep.
from plants and things like this. You can bring plants into your life in a very real way beyond just like the decoration and all of that. CBD, one of my favorite things on the planet. We're talking about plant again, right?
Hmm.
And I just wanted to share too that Mariyah and I are going to be talking in future episodes just about propagation, right?
Yeah.
My favorite plant that I always talk about because it is so unfussy is the monstera. It is one of the easiest plants to propagate. We're going to define what propagation means for people who have not propagated. So
Hmm.
I'm going to get Mariyah to share that with you all about like propagation techniques and
Absolutely.
stuff. And she was speaking about like how to treat your soil and how to aerate it a little bit. I've got these like those clay pellets, Mariyah, that you put
Like
in.
a ball.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we'll talk about those in future episodes, and then how to pick like easy plants. So here's just one of the good old pothos that is real easy, I personally think, how to get started with those. So
Yep.
yeah, and Mariyah, did you want to? Oh, and then I've got my jade plant over here, which I was so intimidated by jade plants.
Oh, it looks great though.
Yeah, it's leaning a little bit, so I may need to repot it. But
Mhm.
one of the things about jades, if you bump up against them, sometimes they can just topple
Mhm.
over.
But what's good is their leaves, even if they ever break off, super, super hardy, so easy to propagate. You can literally, if one were to fall off right now, you can
Mhm.
reintroduce it to soil and it will do its thing.
And run away with you,
Yeah,
right? Yep,
yeah.
that's what I thought too.
I can't wait to speak more about all of these different plant care related topics. It's my favorite thing to talk about, as you all can probably tell. So I'm really excited. Yeah, soil aeration, propagation, um, general like maintenance and cleaning, benefits of that, increased photosynthesis,
Mhm.
air quality. I'll speak to all of those things. It's going to be awesome. So everyone stay tuned, please.
Yes. Stay tuned. So, Mariyah, if you want to carry us home with like one or two tips for people who are just getting started and they just tuned in, just found us, they're,
Mhm.
like we said maybe earlier, a little bit intimidated, but they're also inspired. Like, what's
Yeah.
one thing you would recommend them do as a takeaway, or besides coming back to seeing us next month? What
Yeah,
would you think? Mhm.
definitely that. The first one that comes to mind, I wanted to say that the internet can be very intimidating and very confusing, and there are many opinions. So when first acknowledging that you want to, I say adopt. It's so funny. Just as we would adopt animals, right? We are identifying them as living things. So adoption. Um, when you're going into adopting a plant and you know that you want to, it's easy to go to the internet, but it's very confusing. And people have many different successes and failures, and they live in many different parts of the world. So, when you are plant shopping, rather than looking, what is the easiest house plant or what is da 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 da, when you go shopping, I encourage you to see what you are actually attracted to and
Mm.
feel moved by, right? See what you feel, what is communicating with you.
Mhm.
When you're walking around that plant shop or that farmer's market or your grandmother's house, whoever's offering you anything, see what you feel drawn to because they are speaking and they are speaking to you at different times for different reasons. So don't go with the snake plant because it's the easiest always. See what
Yes.
you like and then look to dive into and learn specifically about that.
Yes.
Because if you admire it, you will then want to take care of it rather than picking what other people's opinions are.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they're communicating, kind of pulling all of these topics together. They're
Mhm.
speaking, be more intentional about even the selection of them. Um, so that's a big tip.
I love that. I love that. Like, just take a step back, breathe for a minute, and spend time. Like, don't
Mhm.
feel rushed. Even if you leave and don't purchase anything that day, and
Yeah.
maybe come back to the farmer's market the following week. That resonates with me because
Take your
that's
time.
how I felt about the Monstera. It took over the internet and Instagram and everything. But I will tell you, there was something about that plant way before it even was a
Mhm.
thing that, because I had seen it at the Miami Botanical Garden, and
Oh,
they have these long tendrils,
they're
and so I saw it like wrapped around a tree, and I got to like reading up on the tendrils and how they behave and what that means and what they're reaching for and what they're clinging to and holding on to and the conditions, how they wrap themselves around, and
they're
I
so
just fell in
cool.
love with the Monstera story.
Yeah. Yeah, they're different. We'll talk about too, everyone. We'll talk about different characteristics of different kinds of plants. So as Angel is speaking to the Monstera deliciosa, um,
Yes.
and any sort of epiphytic plant. That's one of my favorite characteristics.
Mhm.
Epiphytic meaning climbing. So those aerial roots that Angel was pointing out are literally reaching to hug,
Mhm.
right? To hug what is around them to better mature. And I think that is such a beautiful like life lesson and something we should all like translate
Mhm.
to many different areas, but reaching out for help and hugging to promote
Yes.
your overall maturity and so that you can thrive. So Monsteras, they are excellent at that. I love them for many reasons, but those aerial roots have to be one of my favorites.
Yes.
Thanks for
Yes. Oh
mentioning.
my gosh. Mariah, I love you so much. Just
I love you.
yeah.
You're great. You're great. I'm sure everyone can feel the love. Angel and I met through my job. Actually, I work at a plant shop, BULL, in Remington, and the relationship has been so natural and so easy and so beautiful.
Mhm.
And we love the earth and
We do.
other, and
Yeah.
we're just building on that. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for you all.
Yes. Thank you for being here. For anyone who tunes in after the fact and sees the video after our live broadcast, just, put a little comment in there about a question you may have,
Yes.
if you have something you want us to cover on an upcoming series. If
Mhm.
you're here in the Maryland area, anywhere near Baltimore, we're going to have live classes when we get
Yeah.
around the bend to spring and whatnot. So we'll keep you abreast, and you can easily like just click subscribe and you'll be kept abreast of what's coming up. But we've lots of good stuff we want to offer you, and above and beyond everything, we want this to be for your health and your well-being, for
Yes.
your growth, for your spread the good word about nature and nature immersion and plants and all things plant-based. So we thank you so much for spending, first of all, your Sunday with us. And second of all, for allowing us to indulge and talk about something that really makes us come alive in so many different ways. We thank you very much for being here. Mariah, I thank you. I thank William for being our show producer.
Yeah.
Of helping with setup and everything like this. And Charles helping us with setup.
Yeah.
We deeply appreciate it. We really do, William. Thank you so much. And viewers, tune in. Mariah, I'm going to put all of the dates in the comments for the
Yep.
upcoming Happier and Healthier with
Mhm.
Houseplants episodes that are coming up.
That is lovely. Yes, everyone look forward to that. And two, like I said, I never get tired of speaking about this. So like Angel said, if you have a question, a comment, something plant related that you are looking to learn, please reach out, ask,
Mhm.
because that'll also help us kind of build, yes, these classes around answering these questions directly and more in depth, kind of just gauging what everyone wants to see and feel and experience. So please,
Yes.
we welcome that sharing. Very open. Very
We
open.
do, we do. And in one of these episodes, I just had a flashback where we were talking about
That.
meditation and plants and touching the plant and all of that kind of thing. So,
Uh-huh.
that's another thing I want to talk about too, like just being with the plant and using
Yeah.
that as part of meditation practice. And that just popped in my head.
True. And it's so yes, we'll be definitely doing that. Definitely.
Yep. Yes. So everyone have a wonderful Sunday. Be well, be good to yourself. Never, ever, ever be afraid to be amazing. Mariah, thank you so much. I bow to you. I really, truly appreciate you and your beauty and the
I bow.
blessing that you are in my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Continue shining, everyone. Unapologetic.
Unapologetically. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.